got millions of reasons to let it all go. Hope we're not too broken. I know I'm not always strong, and I've been counting days to get away, to see you again, see you again. Been fighting ways to get away, to see you again, see you again. close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go.
There's a distance between us. It's getting hard to reach out. Haven't seen you in seasons, but all I hear is your voice. I know my limits, you can break me down, but I'll stay till the finish line. And I've been counting minutes for quite some time now, just to see you again. And I've been counting days to get away, to see you again, see you again. Been fighting ways to get away, to see you again, see you again. See you again. got millions of reasons to let it all go. Hope we're not too broken. I know I'm not always strong, and I've been counting days to get away, to see you again, see you again. Been fighting ways to get away, to see you again, see you again.
close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go. Through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go. See the horizon, turn us to thousands, and we'll grow in number, fueled by them. To see the horizon, turn us to thousands, and on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And
there's a distance between us. It's getting hard to reach out. Haven't seen you in seasons, but all I hear is your voice. I know my limits, you can break me down, but I'll stay till the finish line. And I've been counting minutes for quite some time now, just to see you again. And I've been counting days to get away, to see you again, see you again. Been fighting ways to get away, to see you again, see you again. See you again. We got millions of reasons to let it all go.
Confidence, and so they usually cost the number of balls early on in the innings in order to preserve wickets for later on. And so New Zealand got away to a good start and held them and held them and held them. 240 wasn't enough, as it happened on the day.
It was a fabulous game of cricket.
Yeah, it was a great game of
I was
cricket.
listening to you guys, and I thought it was a brilliant listen, and it was tense. And that those last the overs and the Kane Williamson 6 and etc. etc. I'm just looking out. Sorry to my attention's just been taken away because the players are now out warming up on the outfield, and bowlers are going through their bowl throughs out in the middle. And Ish Sodhi is having a good bowl
Well, that's
through,
interesting,
and
isn't it?
New Zealand have kept with the same side for the last 5 games.
Correct.
They've not changed, but he's having a decent bowl throughout there, and just with the used nature of the pitch, the fact that it may grip a little bit as well, do you think he might actually get the nod today? We saw Australia actually change a winning side, and it really reaped rewards for them in bringing Jason Behrendorff and Nathan Lyon yesterday.
How Lyon misses out in that side. You know, man, how many test wickets? Over 300?
Yeah, it's about 340, I think.
Yeah, over 300, and yet he can't get a game in the ODI? Nonsense. He's a quality bowler. And I don't know exactly, I didn't see it yesterday, but did he get any wickets, or did he create any difficulties?
He didn't take any wickets. I think it was 9 overs for 43. But it was he was certainly a lot.
But you
gave
need
a lot
that
less to hit
variety.
than Zampa
You need the
had
variety anyway.
Yeah.
And Zampa has been very flat and not really creating the problems. I think Lyon will be a bit more experienced. He'll toss it up a little bit more and create problems.
Do you see Ish Sodhi getting a game today?
It's possible, certainly. At the moment, New Zealand have played 2 all-rounders in every game, Colin de Grandhomme and Neesham. He might play in there, or will they play him instead of Matt Henry? You see, there's some issues around those kinds of players at the moment. They're not, even though they present a kind of a very settled team, but they're not really. There are a few little questions still.
What would be your questions?
My questions would be about opening. I mean, New Zealand have been able, through their bowlers, who have exceeded expectations actually throughout this tournament. They have kept the opposition to under 250, other than the West Indies. So no one's got 300 against them, and that's allowed them to get another way to sort of to sneak through with Williamson and Taylor. Yes, Williamson's got about 370 runs and Taylor's got 200. And then the next, I think, is Guptill with 130 odd, but he's got a 70 in one of those innings. So he's had a couple of ducks recently as well. So there haven't been a lot of components scoring and offering runs. There have been little 20s, but no one who really making a difference other than Williamson or Taylor.
Before I bring Andy back in, we have got news. We're going to have a toss at 11 o'clock, which is great news because we were thinking it was going to be 11:30 for a 12 start. It is actually an 11 o'clock toss with play starting at 11:30. So that is great news, and so we will be underway in the next hour should the rain... should there be no rain. Everything looks pretty good at the moment. And all the players getting loose as just in front of us here from this perfect view that we have high in the pavilion at at Edgbaston here, just having a look at Colin Munro going through a few warming up exercises, just bowling through to the mitts. But Ish Sodhi having a long bowl through along with Mitchell Santner as well, which may be reading too much into it, maybe not. But I'll be intrigued to see if New Zealand do change things up for this particular game. Just due to what we see, albeit from a pitch which is around about 100 metres away or so. Straw-coloured, looks dry, but little dark patches in the follow-through areas.
Well, the problem was, of course, is that particular pitch didn't have much rolling because of weather. And so it was very, very slow throughout. And Imran Tahir bowled, I think, 10 overs for 30, something like that. So he was a sort of a play-out man. We're not going to take too many risks against him. He could run through a few if we give him a chance. And so that's how New Zealand tended to approach it. And Williamson using his skill and just sort of running the ball and anaesthetising it down to third man. That kind of thing. And so, but if you can't do that when you're confronting 4 or 5 spinners and 35 overs. There's got to be a different approach.
Andy?
From Pakistan's point of view, the really encouraging thing about their game with South Africa was that they weren't so dependent on Mohammad Amir. Amir still bowled well, picked up a couple of wickets, was tight and got hit a bit at the end, but still 2 for 49 from 10. In their previous 2 games, he'd basically been holding the whole thing together. He'd taken 8 for 77 against Australia and India combined, and the rest of the Pakistan attack, I think, had 7 for over 500 in those 2 games. However, against South Africa, maybe you can't read too much into performances against South Africa in this tournament. They had a much better performance from the rest of their bowlers. Imad Wasim bowled tidily again, which is essentially what he does. He doesn't get many wickets.
And he hits okay too. He gives a few runs to the team.
Yeah, so he's had a couple of useful innings. He was dropped for a couple of games and has come back with a 46 not out and a quick 23 against South Africa, and generally, he's had 0 for 49 and 0 for 48 off his 10, which pretty much encapsulate his entire career. Tidy without picking up wickets. But then Shadab Khan, 3 for 50. Wahab Riaz, 3 for 46. He'd been very expensive in the tournament up till then. So maybe they're starting to find a bit of form outside Amir, who's been unbelievably good through the tournament. In a tournament dominated by pace bowling, you look at the top 5 wicket takers: Stark, Archer, Amir, Ferguson and Wood. 4 of them bowl constantly 90 plus. Amir is 83 miles an hour with incredible craft, essentially, and in this tournament his figures are unbelievable. 15 wickets, 46 overs, average 14.6, economy 4.7.
And to think that he wasn't actually in the original World Cup squad for Pakistan. Didn't play.
Chicken pox?
Well, he was selected. He was selected in the one-day international series against England, the 5-match one-day international series, that their 17-man squad for that, but wasn't selected in that. Now, he didn't play a game because of chickenpox in the virus that he had for Pakistan, and
changed in a different room.
It would seem that way, so that no one else, if anyone else hasn't got it. Can you imagine the scratching and the what was it, zinc and castor oil that they used to put on chickenpox? Was that it? Castor oil?
Not sure. I think I was in a double act call that one.
Calamine.
Yeah.
It might have been calamine. That was the one. Anyway, I'm just trying to think back to what my mother gave me. Maybe the right thing, maybe the wrong thing. Who knows? But Mohammad Amir actually weirdly became that's for something else, Jeremy. He became a better bowler weirdly by not playing in that 5-match one-day series, and obviously you can see he's really borne fruit for the selection for Pakistan.
And we've talked about it a lot through the tournament. His statistics in between the Champions Trophy, which he finished in a blaze of glory, one of the great white ball opening spells, got out India's Garlanded top 3, got Kohli out twice essentially, had him dropped and then dismissed him the next ball. Since then, before this tournament, 5 wickets in 14 ODI innings. He went through a phase through the second half of 2018 and early this year. In 8 innings, he had 1 wicket, and that was the Zimbabwean number 10, Tendai Chatara. So he'd averaged over 90 in between these 2 tournaments, and he's come back and bowled incredibly well.
Obviously, whilst we've got former New Zealand captain Jeremy Coney alongside us, you've caught every New Zealand game during this Cricket World Cup. You mentioned about the worry at the top of the order. There is maybe a strange way of looking at things, but one day in this Cricket World Cup, Kane Williamson will fail. That's right. You look at his runs, or his scores that he's picked up so far. Didn't need to bat against Sri Lanka because Munro and Guptill knocked off a relatively low total in the opening game of the tournament. Since then, 40, 79 not out, 106, 148. Now, of course, his skills, his mental strength, his approach, the way he plays the game, of course, he's what you would class as in those top 4 of world-class players across the globe, in Virat Kohli, Joe Root, Steve Smith, and Kane Williamson is in that bracket, of course. How much do New Zealand need him? How much do they rely on him? Because now, sooner or later, he's going to get a good one. He's going to and have New Zealand the capability to.
We don't know that, do we? I mean, we say those things.
What's your gut feeling?
History tells us that it's very difficult to keep going at those sorts of levels. Yes. They rely on him too much for me. You can't keep dipping in the Williamson. You've got somebody else has to start to give runs to New Zealand. I read somewhere that the average opening partnership is 44 or something like that in this tournament. New Zealand haven't been doing that. They were 2-0 the other day against the West, and again left armour. What is Wahab Riaz?
Left arm.
What is Mohammed Amir?
Left arm.
Okay, so there are some issues that they have to confront straight away with the new ball, and they have to. Somebody has, else you can't keep going back to the same people. It doesn't work. And so Tom Latham at number 5 has not scored. He's scored 26 runs so far in this tournament at 8.6. Neesham, who bats at number 6, has only had 3 bats in the tournament. You see, because of an abandonment, because the first game both the openers did it and polished the runs off. So there hasn't been many opportunities for some of these players, and when they have, they haven't grabbed them. And so they sit really in a rather odd position, New Zealand, being at 11 points. They've sort of sneaked through with the first 3, and then they've actually, I think today is the last match of the second phase of 3 in the World Cup for them. It is. So the first 3 were comfortable. The next 4 were teams like South Africa, India, West Indies, and today Pakistan. So once those are over, then it gets more difficult again with Australia and England.
Has there been a thought as well, just before we talk Pakistan in a moment, but has there been a thought about maybe manoeuvring the order somewhat? In that,
Nathan could go up there. That's an obvious one.
That was the thing that I was thinking of. Seeing him do it for Durham, and very successfully for Durham as well. Tom Latham opening the batting and people dropping down, or even Monroe perhaps going underneath where Kane Williamson would bat. Do you think that would have been discussed?
I'd hope so. Because it is an obvious choice, isn't it? It's, it invokes a different question, and that is, does he keep? Well, the answer to that is yes. How many games he's only got about 2 or 3 games to go. He can handle that. So he's not getting them at 5. He's coming in on slow pitches, which don't suit him quite so much. Mm-hmm. And so I don't see any problem about him going up and doing both. And that allows Henry Nicholls to come in and give New Zealand a busy little player down at number 5 at that point. So I don't see that as an issue at all, doing that.
I also wonder how oppositions would feel. When you have New Zealand, you get a couple of wickets early and you're immediately into Taylor and Kane Williamson, which is the heartbeat, the engine room of that New Zealand side. And I just wonder if that actually gives... okay, I'm saying this, it sounds like I'm being hugely negative, because New Zealand have won 5 out of 6 with 1 no result, so they're going at great guns at the moment, but this is just the hypothetical that Williamson doesn't score runs.
Right.
In that you get Kane Williamson out, and then bowlers, a bowling side will feel...
They got one end open from number 3.
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm sure that's the case.
It just lowers your engine room a bit, and they have to work a little bit harder to try and get there.
Absolutely, and that's the ponderable one really that New Zealand confront, and no one really has found an answer to that yet. So far, all we've seen, as I say, Neesham only 3 bats. Santner only 3 bats. Those people in that middle component, Latham only 3 bats. So it's not ideal when you look at. But if it says that some part of it is working, but the bowling, as I say, has been enabled them to get away with. By reducing the targets that they're chasing, they've been able to slide through, if you like, with Williamson and with Taylor.
Just waiting to have the toss, of course. If you are just joining us on 5 Live Sports Extra or around the world on the ICC website, it's 16 minutes to toss time. And match 33 of New Zealand versus Pakistan, and all we can see is green shirts out in the crowd. The Holly stand will be noisy, it'll be raucous, one of the best stands in world cricket as well. Always remember here on T20 Finals Day, where it's full of people in fancy dress, and it's just bonkers. Well, I'm imagining that the fancy dress will be replaced by green-shirted Pakistan fans, but the noise levels might be even louder than we have on those particular days in September. Right away across the ground as I look round the oval here, there's Pakistan flags draped across the barriers. It's going to be bonkers with vuvuzelas blasting, horns and whistles and drums. Yeah. It's going to be fantastic when it does eventually get going. We are 15 minutes away from the toss then between Pakistan and New Zealand, much riding on this result for not just the sides that are playing today, but for others around them as the table just starts to sort itself out, this being the business end of the pool stages of the Cricket World Cup. Charles Dagnall with you alongside Andy Saltzman, Jeremy Coney, former New Zealand captain, alongside me. Let's take a look at the Pakistan perspective. Atif Nawaz is here from the BBC Asian Network. Great to have you along, Atif. And well, I was explaining to Jeremy earlier that the Pakistan run is very similar to the 1992 Pakistan run. Every single result has been exactly the same, so basically your name's on the trophy. Good morning to you.
Good morning to everybody. I mean, I've seen that thing memed everywhere that breaks down all the results. It's actually even closer when you can break down the results by runs of defeat or runs of victories. Or I think the previous match against South Africa, match 6 in 92, was 48 runs, and that was of course 49 runs. Also, the man of the match in 92 in that game was Amir Sohail, and then the man of the match in the previous game was Haris Sohail. So it is really, I mean, there's something. I mean, is there something to it? Who knows? I mean, well, I'm sure New Zealand will be looking to end that run today.
Who's going to be Prime Minister of Pakistan in 2020? Is it Sarfraz Ahmed?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't bet against him. Let's put it that way. There's a slightly more positive feeling about the Pakistani team at the moment. The fans are always passionate. They come out, and you talk about fancy dress. I mean, you'll see a lot of fancy dress amongst the Pakistan fans. There's a lot of fans who've adopted characters. You've got this Sheikh character he's like an Arab Sheikh style character. You've got this Pakistani Hulk guy. You've got this cricket dictator, I think his name is. Like they've adopted all these things, and they're very popular in the fans. It's becoming this secondary culture of dressing up and coming to the games, and it's more of a social occasion for them. But what they really want to go with that is the results.
Let's talk about what's happened in the week, because Pakistan achieved a very good victory. And then in the press conference recently, Mickey Arthur had a very interesting answer to one question. I think it was about Haris Sohail, and he scored 89, I think it was, off 50-odd balls, something like that, but it absolutely beautifully. And then it has to be said, the question was a fairly loaded one in a negative sense, and Mickey Arthur had just obviously had enough. The former South African coach, now coach of Pakistan, just turned around and said, look, why don't you write something positive for a change? Now, of course, it is not the duty of the written press in the world to write positive stories about absolutely everything, but you kind of felt for Mickey on this one and sort of went, yeah, you've got a point. Is there a bit of siege mentality starting to develop in the Pakistan dressing room, do you feel?
Yeah, I think they were under fire a lot, particularly after that India loss, right? They were attacked from all ends, and of course after the fact everybody knows what they're doing. Hindsight's always 20/20, so why did they not bat first, knowing their own track record, even though it was overcast? And Virat Kohli himself said he would have batted first, but somehow when Pakistan do it, it's the wrong thing. Insults were flying around social media, and some fans got very carried away. The video that did the rounds, and there was all sorts of things that were very distasteful that were happening around the Pakistan team. And you can sense that frustration amongst the players, because they're under immense pressure.
Sorry to interrupt. Was that because it was India and the defeat was against India, or was that just due to the nature of another Pakistan loss?
I think it's a combination of both. It's the fact that they'd lost running into that. They weren't having the best tournament. Then they've lost to their arch rivals, and in such a, there was the margin of victory was huge for India. So it wasn't the contest that people hoped for. It was a very one-sided match after a certain point. So there was a lot of disappointment, which you understand. But obviously, you got to keep your critique within a certain level. And Wasim Akram talked about it to me. He was telling me Twitter is like the open window in my garden. When people throw rubbish in, I have to close it and block people. But there's only so much time you can spend blocking people. You still see their comments, and they can be quite hurtful. And depending on how sensitive one is, and some of these players he talked to me about are quite sensitive, it can really hurt you. And I think the coach there in the press conference, that was just one layer of the critique that he's had to face, and it was frustrating that the media that you kind of expect to have your back, to be a bit more objective, to try and see both sides of the story and tell both sides of the story, have generally been leaning towards a negative narrative. It's interesting how it flipped though, because when Pakistan won against South Africa this week at Lord's, it wasn't the most convincing win. I mean, the scorecard flatters to deceive on Pakistan's perspective. They weren't fielding well. They were dropping catches. None of the batsmen, aside from Haris's innings, sort of went on and did anything significant. But they wrote about it as if this was the second coming of the '92 team again. There's a very extreme reaction in Pakistan to whether they're doing well or whether they're doing poorly. And there's the sad reality is there's not enough kind of objective analysis of the team one way or the other. It's always quite extreme. And again, Wasim Akram said that he thinks that they need to just get used to that. They need to get used to that level of critique and that level of exposure, because in Pakistan, cricket, it's a cliche, but cricket is viewed like a religion.
I'd be interested to know, and maybe Jeremy, you might remember this. I don't know, and my apologies if you don't. But just how the Pakistan media actually reacted during the 1992 World Cup when they weren't, so I remember England bowling them out for 70, I think it was, in one of the games in the group stages, and things weren't going well, and no one would have at all thought that Pakistan would have had any chance of lifting the trophy in 92. Now there is you look at their results so far. The loss, first up, the loss against the West Indies. Then they beat England. They were rained off against Sri Lanka, lost against Australia, lost against India, South Africa with that victory over Lords. Their last 3 games, New Zealand here, and then Afghanistan and Bangladesh, 2 sides that they know very well. Bangladesh playing excellent cricket. You would imagine that Afghanistan, even though they were defeated in a warm-up game that we all went to see at Bristol, where Afghanistan actually overcame Pakistan in what was a very entertaining day's cricket down at Bristol. Is there the feeling that or the expectation? What is the expectation for Pakistan fans at this moment? Because when coming into this game, they're way down the rankings. They're not expecting, to lift the trophy. Is the expectation there now, just with 1 victory over South Africa?
Yes, there is immense expectation. When you're a Pakistan cricket fan, you expect them to win every tournament they're playing in and every match they ever play in at any given time without any chance of any kind of loss. It's absurd, the level of expectation people have from the Pakistan cricket team. I think more so since they pulled off that kind of the miracle at the Oval a couple of years ago when they beat India so decisively in the final in the Champions Trophy final. Since then, there's been a renewed sense of expectation. With Pakistan, at regular intervals, they do deliver big wins. So, they won the 92 World Cup. In 99, they had that run to the final. In 2007, they won the 2009, I beg your pardon, they won the World T20. They won a lot of sort of bilaterals in between. They went number 1 in the World T20 rankings. They won the Champions Trophy in 2017. So they do, and they went world number 1 in the tests for a fortnight as well. So in between, so they always keep their fans very interested and give them a reason to believe that this is a strong team. When if you break it down man by man, it doesn't really, and I say this with the greatest respect to the players, it doesn't really compare with the great Pakistan teams of the late 90s or even the 80s. When you think about those great players like the Wasim Akrams, the Waqar Yunuses, the Javed Miadads, Inzamams, there's nobody of that stature in this team. I remember speaking to some of the Indian cricket fans when we did the Dusra podcast, and I said to them, if you could take any player from the Pakistan team, who would you take and who would you replace for them? And really, they were only interested in Mohammad Amir and Babar Azam. They're the only 2. You'd consider maybe KL Rahul for Babar Azam and maybe Bhuvi Kumar for Mohammad Amir, but even that's a maybe. When historically, you'd probably get half and half. But India's got some kind of zenith at the moment of talent.
Preparing for a side like Pakistan, Jeremy, must be very, very difficult, as it's all very nice to say the cliche of which Pakistan will turn up today, but I suppose as an opposition trying to face that, going through their performances over the World Cup and in the last 18 months or so, which haven't been fantastic, but their calibre of players that they have within their ranks, the ability to change games, it must be quite difficult to prepare for them.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I would think that there is a certain anxiety about what will they provide today against you, but you can get caught up a bit with that, I think, Charles. And really, nowadays, I think the players 2 days before, 3 days before the match are working on trying to stick with their own kind of things, and these are the things that haven't worked for me so far in the tournament. I've got to do this bit a bit better if I can. I can expect a bowler who's going to be a left. They could say the left armers. They could certainly say that might be an issue for them, and so they can replicate that with getting arrangements at nets and so on and getting people down. So I think worrying overly about the opposition, I think those things have been just tucked away a little bit, to be honest. I hope they have been, otherwise you'd never sleep. Worrying about this chap's going to turn it and that chap's going to be watch out for his wrong and you just carry on, and that's not the way to do it. You just think, this is my game, these are the shots I'm going to play against the spinners, these are the areas I'm going to try and hit the ball, here's how I'm going to defend, and you work around yourself, I think, pretty much. And
I was watching a press conference, just to follow on, that's bang on actually. I think there was a press conference, I think Mitchell Santner was sitting there and he was asked the question, how do you prepare for a Pakistan team that's so unpredictable? He said, which I thought was very sensible, he said, you prepare for them as if they're going to play the best cricket that they can play, and at that point you're prepared for everything. I think it's a very sensible approach. I think you just have to ignore the fact that this Pakistan team can vary so widely in their performance.
Yeah, I mean, you can't control them, can
Exactly.
you?
Not at all.
No.
And I just wonder, and you talk about
Their coach
control.
can't control them.
Well,
No, can they control themselves is the question.
Oh, and that comes down to was going to be my next question in the captain. I mean, it really is kind of a poison chalice to be named captain of Pakistan, knowing that when they all play their best cricket on the same day, which seems to happen once in a blue moon. Someone will have a good day here and there, but it'll be surrounded by 10 other players who just don't really perform on that particular day. How does Sarfraz, deal with what he's got in both from a batting, bowling, and then a fielding perspective, where some days they're exceptional, some days they drop 5 catches at Lords and still manage to win a game, and then have to go and deal with all the other extraneous properties that come with being Pakistan captain in the media, etc.
Yeah, it's very difficult to be the figurehead of that kind of equation. I can only imagine the pressures that he goes through and how many grey hairs he's had to dye over the years. But it's very difficult because when you come in as Pakistan captain, you're never going to be regarded as the greatest captain ever. It's always going to be Imran Khan. I mean, Misbah-ul Haq has the best Test record. Wasim Akram was
Hold me close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways.